Welcome everyone to Jedi Foundations 1. My name is Satelle, or Anne, if you want to call me first name and everything. This is glad to be here. I'm really happy that this event has gone off so well. I see that the little bit of the work going on behind the scenes with the Zoom mavens, and it's really appreciated. I know how that can be crazy to herd the cats and get everything working. Let's go ahead and go into. Yeah, I do have a lot of fun transitions. So the agenda of this workshop, I think we have an hour and a half, which is quite a bit of time. I'm going to go over the workshop guidelines, which is pretty much what has already been said about behavior and stuff, since this is an interactive one where we only have an hour and a half. There are some materials I expect everyone to have on hand, basically something to write with. We'll go over that. Intro to the foundations. Why are you here? What are we going to be covering? And we go into self-analysis, expectations. I do have a 15-minute break because I know that an hour and a half is a long time to be staring at a screen and sitting down. So there's going to be a break in here. And then we'll dive into the concepts of objectivity and subjectivity, personal traits, and we'll do a review, and then we'll have some thanks and goodbyes. And if there's any time, we'll have some general questions. So the guidelines, this is interactive. Discussion is welcome but not required. Hand raised is great. There's a lot of people here. We want to give enough time for people to raise their hands. Be kind and constructive. There's going to be hopefully some people who might want to talk about, what their thoughts were during some of these exercises. That no criticism. There's no right answers. There's no wrong answers here. We want to stay on topic. If you have any thoughts that you go down those rabbit holes, there's going to be a lot of them. Write them down for yourselves if they are long or not on topic here. If they are short or on topic, raise your hand. We'll talk about them. But if they're long or not on topic, just write them down for yourself so that you don't forget them. And then you can go into detail with them yourself later on. Come as go as you need, but silently. We're all adults here. If you need to get up and go to the bathroom, just do it. You don't need to say, I'll be right back. I don't need to know that. I'm going for a pee. No, just keep it to yourself. Come and go as you need, whatever. Stay muted and video off when not talking. This is just really a kindness for people who may not have the bandwidth with all the video coming, and it really does help everyone's performance with Zoom if you just have the video off. Technical problems, if you have any technical problems with Zoom or anything, or seeing anything, please direct them to Discord. We do have people watching Discord. I'll be watching Discord or the text chat here. Don't do it verbally. We'll just try to deal with that on the side. So are there any questions? No? Okay, dive in. Participant materials. Take time now to find or get ready a notebook or some medium for writing, a pen or pencil or keyboard. You'll be doing some of these exercises on your own. I think a good portion of this is going to be exercises that challenge you to think along certain topics. You don't need to share any of this if you don't want to. If you want to share, that's great. We'll talk about them, but the most important thing that I feel is that you are thinking about things and writing them down for yourself. I'm a big proponent of private journals. I think that people, when they are writing things that are expected to be shared, either verbally or written, they tend to do some self-editing because they know that people are watching, and that doesn't help them. So write these things down. You don't need to share them. You don't even need to come on video or anything, but this is just for you. And I do encourage you to participate in that way. Okay, an introduction to foundations. Some of you might have heard about Maslow's hierarchy of need. It's a pyramid that says that lower needs must be satisfied before the individual can satisfy the higher needs. So you need to have you need to be well fed before you start really working on your esteem issues. The higher up in the hierarchy, the more difficult it is to satisfy the needs at that stage, because those lower shortages frustrate and delay us. I think one of the examples that I'm thinking of when I was putting this slide together is people who kind of drop out of the Jedi community when things go tough for them. It's not because I don't really think it's because the Jedi community is hindering them in some way when they have this when they have this problem. It's just that you need to focus. If you're having an issue, like your rent's due, or you're having problems with your family or something like that, you tend to kind of condense it down. If you notice, like when you're in a car, if you're getting lost, you're dealing with like rain or heavy traffic. Some of us turn down the radio. What does sound have to do with watching your driving? It's just you're trying to focus, right? So I think that, having this hierarchy means that when you're dealing with problems, those lower problems, they can tend to kind of come up and interrupt higher things. If you're trying to do self-actualization as a Jedi, and you have a problem arguing with your partner or something, it's going to distract and pull you back down in this hierarchy. So it's not a strict hierarchy. You can have partially satisfied aspects. You can be kind of working on multiple things at once, but just be aware that those partials will continue to impact your life from below. And that's kind of what I was thinking when I was talking about Jedi foundations. I have a history with the magical, the ceremonial magical community before I became a Christian. And it always kind of struck me is that people tended to focus on the really cool whiz bang things about the magical study, right? They wanted to be magicians, they wanted to summon whatever. As Jedi, we tried to we want to be guardians and all this stuff, but they were kind of both of those groups kind of ignore the things that we all stand on, and that's like our self-esteem, our feeling of belonging, our safety, how emotionally stable we are, things like that. And those are foundations, and those are things we stand on. But those are things that people kind of say that you learn when you're growing up. Well, I think everybody here can tell that that's not always the case, right? You don't always get through childhood with these things just worked out. You're fine with them. Everyone's got a safe home. Everyone came from one, right? Yeah, everything's perfect. No, it is not like that. And these things can kind of come up and sabotage what we're doing, remind us of some hurts and things like that. So having looking at your foundation, I think, is really important to be able to really tackle that self-actualization, that studying to be a Jedi that we're trying to do, so that we aren't tripped up by the things that we left behind or we thought we left behind and buried in the past. So the first exercise here is going to be a little bit of self-analysis. This is about watching the watcher. This foundation number one is about the mind a lot. It's about watching the watcher. You're using the mind to examine the mind, which is a little bit difficult. Like, who watches the watcher there? You can observe your thoughts, but your thoughts can be deceptive. You can be affected of your thoughts. It's kind of like when you look at a thing, it changes. It's the same thing inside the mind. You're looking at your own thoughts, you get to like, oh, well, I don't really like how that thought's going, so I'm going to change a little bit, or maybe I'm going to change what I think I want that to be. And you're kind of doing this back and forth thing. So they can be deceptive, pulled in many directions by the emotions, overly subjective, etc. Mindfulness kind of helps clear that air to see and listen internally with as few of those distorting influences as possible. And there's a lot, right? Even when you're alone by yourself, your mind is still kind of turning around. You're having little arguments. You're kind of adjusting everything. It's really like a collection of people in there, right? So you're trying to like all those competing things. And then when you're not alone, you've got a bunch of things coming in. You've got expectations of friends. You've got advertising telling you that you need to part with your well-earned money to buy this new gadget. You've got expectations from society and everything. So it's a real mess. So one of the things you want to do is like get used to looking and watching that watcher. And it's kind of easy and hard at the same time. Easy because it's right there. You own a brain, you can look at it. But the second one is you're a human being. So it's not that easy, is it? So we got some exercises that'll help do that. So get your pens and papers and your computers out. And we could go through an exercise. And a lot of people, I get a lot of sometimes really raw responses to this. I'm going to make you do a really quick quiz. And I want to put the URL in the chat and make it easy for people. So this is a personality quiz. It is specifically about the Myers-Briggs. So take what you can. Just take a couple of minutes, and if you could put your hands up, raise your hands in the Zoom when you're done. You get an idea of how many people are done. I'm gonna talk as people are finishing up. This test, well, any quiz is over the years I found one. I'm from the the Department of State, and State Department uses this quiz, this specific quiz, administered professionally, where they have a it's a little more detailed, and you have to pay money for it and everything. And the yeah, Carmen, sometimes you change. And the reaction of people to taking personality quizzes like this ranges from, oh gosh, it really captured me. It's totally describing me, and I love it. To, I can't be defined by any test, and you're like, whoa, dude, we're not looking to find out which hobbit you are. It's not for the job, this thing. But tests like this, uh, scientifically, they're about as useful as an IQ test, honestly. All they do really is promote you to think about yourself and how you think. Anything that gets you to think, even if you're rabidly disagreeing, or it takes you half an hour to go over one question, is good, right? You could easily do this sort of exercise with runes. Say runes are something, one of the mediums of divination that I prefer. I've been doing them since I was in high school and college. And anything, like, you take those little stones with the rune on, with pretty much a one word meaning, and you toss them down, and you're dealing with one word. But the magic comes in to anything when you actually apply, like, okay, what does that mean in my situation? So any kind of tool, be it like runes, tarot, use personality tests that get you thinking about things, is good. You don't need to worry about it. It could be right or wrong. It may not capture you totally. Who cares? I tend to use them just as a exercise to think. I like kind of using, finding out how other people score, if they feel that it was accurate enough, so I can understand, oh, they don't think the way I do. So when they do this, I need to remember that they don't think the way I do, and that sort of thing. So it's a good method to think about things, and get you going. So you can raise your lower hands, and if you haven't finished the quiz, it's there. I'll have the recording, and I'm going to be making the slides available somehow to everybody. So again, exercise 2. So using the notes you just took, or the thoughts that you had from those questions, want to summarize your points to a series of statements in the following format. For the ways that the test was wrong about you, write a statement for each way in one of the formats. I do not blank. I am not blank. These are your protest statements. Uh, for the ways that the test was right about you, write a statement for each way it was right. I do blah. I am blah. Try to capture those as much as possible. If you didn't take notes or anything on that, just there, the test comes up with a really nice write up about each type. You can kind of skim it. And just note, like, oh well, I don't agree with that, or oh yeah, it really was correct for me on that. So you can just write as many of these statements as you want. I'll give about 5-10 minutes for you to write them. So you can kind of see from this exercise, now you're thinking about why you had reactions to the test. You're thinking about like, if I agreed with it, why did I? Were there examples that you could think of as like, oh yeah, I totally expect that. That's totally how I reacted yesterday to this. Or if you're rabidly against it, oh, I can't possibly do that. Is it because it's something you don't want, or is it actually because something that you are not? That's where the emotion gets in. So that's something to think about, like why you felt that why you felt the quiz was right and wrong. For exercise 3, we're going to shift a little gears, and this one's a little difficult. Usually, I would say that this is something you would do over a week, but since we're going to be kind of doing it right here, it's going to be a really quick exercise. Think back to today, or the recent history when you made a judgment on something. Look for thoughts such as like that is or was that. That isn't or wasn't this. This could be as simple as, oh, that's a horrible color hat, or as complex as that wasn't a good way to handle that command. Look for that first judgment before any other thoughts pile on. So these are things that you just said, you made a I like that, or I don't like that, or that was this was this. So kind of jot down as many as you can remember. Like 3 or 4 is good, or just as many as you can do. Like I said, this is something that I usually have people do over a week of collecting things, so they have a larger sample size and more time to do it. So like 3 or 4 is good. Um, for each of those captured thoughts, just jot down what you felt about it. Do you feel that the thought was negative or positive? Did you make an unfair judgment? Was it something bad about the person? Was it something positive about something you saw? Was it a compliment? These are not the same as good or bad, which are value judgments. These are just, did you assign something to someone? Did you change your mind after it? Did it stick? Did you find yourself regretting? It's like, oh, actually, no. I was wrong about that. What 3 words or short phrases sum up the thought? Was it judgmental? Was it complimentary? Was it agreement? Was it happy? What was it? And was the thought repeated during the week? Was it something that happened repeatedly? Was it a something you passed on the way to work or school, and you saw it and it's like, yeah, I really like that. That was really good. I like the color of that building. Something that was repeated. So go ahead and take about 5 minutes to do this. Eh, 5 minutes is not a lot of time, but again, do the best you can, and I'll go ahead and put the slides out for people to do in more detail if they'd like. All right. And for the last exercise in this section, exercise 4, we're going to talk about uh, things that are mindful and things that are automatic. When you were thinking those things, there's compliments and reactions to things that are mindful, that you looked at it and you actually compared it to some inner idea you thought about a little bit before that thought came out. And then there's those automatic ones, which are those knee-jerk reactions. They, oh wow, that that tree is horrific, or whatever. There's kind of instant things that kind of bypass some sort of thought. So mindful is you're feeling a connection to what is happening right then. So it's giving you a little bit of, like, you're weighing that a little bit more closely. You're maybe personally involved in it, so you have some other things, that thoughts that will enrich that, and not necessarily knee-jerk reactions. And an automatic is less connected. I think that automatic tends to be kind of a rejection. There's those, oh well, no, I'm not going to do that. And perhaps made out of habit without really thinking about it. So, from those responses in the last exercise, answer the following about each. Would you say that it was mindful or automatic when you made each of those judgments? So another 5 minutes on those, but it should be pretty quick. Okay. So this may seem a very, like, a scientific way of tackling the mind, and it is. You're looking at the mind and how it thinks. There's a lot of science around, psychology and things like that. But really, for me, it means you're kind of breaking the thoughts down and looking for those connections inside your brain that lead to other things. Um, if you have a lot of those automatic feelings, where are those coming from? And sometimes it's hard to see where that is. If you're thinking about things mindfully, do you see what's going on there? If you gave thought to something, if you're looking at a piece of art, did it make you happy? It leads to some emotions. What makes you happy about it? And these are deeply personal. I mean, no two people are going to look at something and feel the same way about it. They might agree that it's pretty, but why they agree that it's pretty has everything to do with their experience with pretty, their experience with the subject matter, everything, and none of that is the same. So when you're looking at thoughts like this, breaking them down, like pulling things out of the world and looking, it's like, well, why did I think that way? Did I just just shot out of my brain? Am I just spewing out in my brain things without really thinking about it, or am I actually like looking at things and making mindful judgments about what I see? Um, you, these have sources in the brain, and that's really the point. One of the things you want to look for is where those sources are. When I was talking about how to when you're trying to gather those cats together, herd those cats in your brain, all those kind of personalities are going on, and they're all got their little voices going on. They all have a voice, and it's important to understand which ones are impacting what you do and you think in the forefront of your brain. And understanding that helps when something happens and you just can't explain it. Well, why did you say that mean thing to your friend? You don't know. That's terrible. Why did you not know? Is it something you don't know? Are you saying you don't know because you know, but you don't want to admit it out? That's something different. But if you literally don't understand why you said something, this is you in your head, you kind of want to understand that. So it is important when you're looking at the mind, you're watching the watcher. You can use these methods that are very scientific, kind of narrow it down, but it's not as scientific as that. You're just trying to narrow it down and get thinking about them. You want to get them down to that one rune, right? One rune, and then start riffing off of it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And I will say that this is a lifelong effort. None of us are going to understand our total mind by the time we die. It's just not going to happen. As some people have said in the chat, people change. You'll find out that what you were when you were 16 is very different than when you were 25. I'm 50. Who I was 20 years ago is very different than it is now, and that's normal. People change. You get a bunch of life experiences, and they affect you. But the important thing is understanding how they affect you and why. And if it's something you want. If my life experience had been different and it had been negative and it turned me into a cynical person now that really just kind of hated people, that would be sad. And that would be something I'd really want to know, because I really wouldn't, at that point, would I want to be someone who went through life hating other people? No. I want to understand, well, what in my past caused that? Is that something I can reverse? And you really will only reverse it by understanding where it came from. So this is extremely important, and this is something that really should be done on a regular basis whenever you're accounting. And the way you do this is journaling. I know that I'm not really a big journaler. I never really have been, but I kind of live solitary, so I'm always kind of doing this in my head anyway. But I recognize the value of journaling, because what you can do is you can look back and say, oh, I wrote this entry, 5 years ago. I solved that problem. I don't have the problem that was vexing me so harsh back then. And you can trace what you did or what happened to you to solve that problem. And it's like a light going off. And you'll never have to repeat that problem again because you've solved it. You have to deal with other problems, new problems, but you solve that one problem. And so recording that kind of thing honestly, without worrying about other people seeing it, just have that private journal and do that. Do we have any questions on any of the exercises that people want to share? I like the chat, so I can respond there. But if anyone had a verbal things, no, okay, cool. Well, go on to expect. Oh yes,
sorry.
it's always one. There's always one.
There's always one. You know what? I'm always the one. I find that not only do people change, but like as I had said in the room or in the chat, it can be really hard to look at a test like this and come up with answers. And every exercise you've had builds off of that. So I just kind of want to point out that when you're going through these exercises, the beginning kind of starts here in a way, and you just have to go with what your first instinct is. Like,
Mhm.
who are you right now? Not who you would normally be or who you think you would normally be, because who you would want to be normally is not who you are right
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
So whatever you think right now, what would I do?
Yep.
That's the answer.
Yep. And that is the advice that they give for these tests, not to overthink them. And for that reason, professionally, they'll say like, don't stop and think. Well, if I did that, just go ahead and answer them and do it, and it'll change sometimes really drastically. Or like I kind of quipped, it's like in the morning I'm always an introvert before my coffee, so that's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, you have to do that, emptying your mind when you answer the questions, trying to get that clear the air and get it in there. Yeah, and I realize this is a very INTJ thing I'm talking about. You can't sometimes it just creeps up on you. But yeah, journaling is the way to do it. But going back and trying the basics again. I think, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, I think even if you're a Jedi master, you have to go back to the basics. What is it? If you're learners, there's learner mind. Finding yourself back to learner's mind is really the goal, which sounds really funny to someone who's just starting out in learner's mind. Once you go back to learner's mind and feeling, oh, I don't know anything, it's wonderful. That's kind of the goal. But a learner's mind will go back and do this multiple times and learn something just fantastic every time. So it's something that's a constant life journey. Okay, we're going to go to expectations. Expectations are those forces that are on you. It could be your internal ones, things we expect for ourselves. Like I expected to be a multimillionaire by now. Things like that. Or they could be external. How many people have parents and family that expected you to be doctors, being a millionaire by now? There's all those forces on you that they can be for the good. You can have a mentor that's driving you to giving you a little bit of pain to keep going, or they can be bad. Internally, they can be a little bit on the overachieving side. You can beat yourself up if you weren't perfect. So I mean, a little bit too much, a little bit too little. You go easy on yourself, that thing. But the expectations really kind of drive motion. They're pushing you to do something and not just stay still. Not all expectations can be adversarial. The social contract. If you think about like stop signs, there's an expectation you stop at a stop sign. There's expectation you stop at a red light, right? Those are expectations that everyone's kind of bought into, but everyone's kind of seen what happens when someone just says, I don't have the expectation of stopping at this light, and bad things happen. As a society, the social contract, we've decided that everyone's going to agree to do this for the public good. So that's a positive expectation. They don't have to. And I think that people, when I talk about expectations, they think, well, I don't want to be told what to do. Well, you are, so that people don't die. Speed limits and things like that. They're not, impinging on, your right as a human being. They're there for some sort of reason. So they're not all bad. Being aware of how expectations impact you is important. You can have good. All right, thanks, Daniel. You can have good expectations or bad expectations, I said, but understanding how they impact you is important. This is a little bit difficult because that the brain is really tricksy. You can have you can feel an expectation from your mentor or your boss, and think, God, yeah, that's really unfair. I don't really like that, and then later find out that there was a reason behind it, and it was a good expectation of you. So we all have that kid thing. I experienced that at work, about hiring. I have a lot of expectation on from my leadership on hiring people, and for a while I was like, oh God, don't you understand what I'm doing? And then I thought about it, and like, yep, it is something that I need to do, and you kind of accept it, but you shoulder that kind of the negative impacts. But being aware of them is important, so that you can make a judgment on whether or not that is something that's fair, and deal with it and cope with it appropriately. Yeah, back to the exercises. All right. Exercise 5. Pretend it's a new year and you're buying into the whole New Year resolutions activity. And you have a whole year ahead of you to get some things done. It's like clean slate. For some reason, you've just retired. What would be on your list to improve yourself in that time frame? If you've got a year to do whatever you want with yourself, what would you do with it? Make the list real. If you just put one thing on there, that's fine. There's no, number of things you need to put on there, but make them real. Make them actual goals. Take some time here that you think you would take longer than a typical year to do it. If it's something that's lifelong, note it down, but really aim for that 1 year time frame that you think could easily get done in that 1 year. And I'll give you 5 minutes to do this. All right. It was more or less hard for people. I always like those because you make the New Year's resolution, and by like March you're like, what resolution? Which brings us to exercise 6. Now, resolutions, whether they're New Year's resolutions or normal day to day, like, oh, by the next week I'm going to do part of the IP. Who, me, right? There's some reason why that doesn't happen, right? There's some reason. It doesn't have to be a good reason. Sometimes it's a bad reason. But there's reasons why those goals that you set for yourself don't happen. Especially, I mean, if they're goals that no one knows about, and for some reason they just don't happen. Um, it really is something that you need to look at. Procrastination is kind of a fear response. What are you afraid of actually doing? Is there something holding you back? And that is something, just like anything else that we've been talking about here, is something you have to examine and see, just, well, what's holding you back? Because if it's all within your own hands and you've got a realistic goal and you understand what you need to do, some things, it's very clear what you need to do. Weight loss is one of mine. I know I need to keep within under calories, and I shouldn't eat any sugars and stuff. But boy, cupcakes, you know, eh, nothing's forcing me to buy those cupcakes, right? But there's something there. Is it a comfort thing? What's going on there? Did I have a bad day and I just need some comfort? Is there something better I could be doing there? So these are choices we make. I mean, there's no one usually on those cases where there's no one that's preventing you from things. If you've picked some goals that just have, like, they're pretty much adversary free goals, you know, what's stopping you there? So we're gonna kind of delve into some of those goals you wrote down, and you're gonna look at, to achieve this, I would need to do X. It could be a laundry list of tasks. Some of your goals may take multiple ones. We're not looking for complete plans on how you would be doing these things, but you should be able to read these goals and go, oh, well, to need that, I need to have $100, or I need to change how I arrange the kitchen, or I need to do this, or, do that. But just go ahead and try to write down for each one of the goals what you would need to do to get there. And then next on those, do it to achieve this, I would need to be. Now there's differences between do and be. Do's are actions. These are things you need to line up and do. You need to buy something, you need to save something, you need to wake up early, stuff like that. But to be something that helps you be successful at your goals, that's something different. This is probably related to those traits that you did. I mean, like personality traits, what would you need to do? Do you procrastinate? Do you think that you're lazy? Do you think you're an overachiever? You think that you're not going to start anything like this because if it's not perfect on the first get go, then it's not worth doing, right? There's a lot of things there that you need to be and not do that hold you back. So try to do a couple of these statements. You're going to do things you need to do, and then things you need to be. I need to be more patient. I need to be thrifty. I need to be more mindful, that sort of thing. So go ahead and take 5 minutes to go through your goals there. All right, my notes have me at a 15-minute break here, but I think we're running overtime. So we will go ahead and just do a little bit of a stretchy. So just where you are, just get up and move around. Stretch your back. If you've been sitting a long time, get up and walk around a little bit. I love my Apple Watch that reminds me every hour that, hey, you've been sitting too long. I leave it on. You just take a minute. Yeah, tea, get tea. So we're going to dive into objectivity and subjectivity, and this really is about dialing in and out of situations as it is useful to gain multiple perspectives. So like if you think about, life as like a Google Maps, if you zoom in, you're getting very subjective. That neighborhood, that house, you're seeing pieces and parts. You're seeing the trees in the forest. But if you zoom out, you get kind of a different understanding. You start seeing states and countries, and you start seeing patterns of roads and things. It's a different perspective, and you can do that, in life too. Most of the time, I think we're kind of focused on that closed-in subjective because we're kind of doing, we've got our perspective from our eyes. We're looking around. We're dealing with life as it pertains to us. But zooming out, sometimes including other people, gives you that understanding about, okay, oh, there's other people involved in this thing. You know, what's their view? They've got to have a different view. I mean, I've said before that no one's the same. Everyone has different perspectives, and also when we took the quiz, people come up with different responses to that. So, what if they're an ENFP? They're going to think differently than you. So zooming out a little bit and getting that objective view and start thinking of that situation objectively does include other people. It gives you that opportunity to make those connections with other people that are involved. And this perspective also combats bias. Bye, JK. Oh, they're dying on. That perspective also combats bias, both held bias like bigotry and imposed like manipulation and advertising. There's multiple types of involved in this objectivity and this subjectivity. Oh gosh, small. So for the exercise 7, go to go ahead and read each of these statements, and then just write down in your journal whether it is objective, it's based on external observations, kind of factual, or subjective, based on a personal opinion. And if any of them feel like they're in between, because there are going to be those, describe why. And this one, you feel free to speak up, or you can just write them down or just think about them. Some of them are kind of tricky.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you read them
Yeah,
because
sorry. Yeah, okay. So the first question is, the distraction of smartphones is a major cause of car accidents. Second, what is, while she was a senator, she passed important legislation. And the next one, according to a 2013 New York Times article, 60% of students graduating from college in 2011 to 2012 left school with debt. The average amount of debt per student was $26,000, $26,500. The next one, exercising regularly is one of the best ways you can improve health. The next one, Starbucks reported lower earnings this quarter because millennials are fleeing the brand. The next one, the temperature in this office is going to make me sick. The next one, Apple computers are easier to use than Windows computers. I know which one she's going to pick. The next one, Given the number of news reports on shootings, gun violence is on the rise. The next one, the interviewer's notes indicated that the interviewee demonstrated a good working knowledge of each of the requirements. She is. And the last one is the BBC does more entertaining than informing. So some of these are really tricky. Some of these can be both. Some of these have interesting keywords in here that are like, you could say that they're value judgments, and value judgments are always subjective unless they have some sort of fact on there. The one interesting one when I was putting this together that really struck me is the second to the last one about interviewers. Now, if you've done any kind of like I mentioned, I'm currently in a hiring kick. And if you've ever looked for a job that involved interviews, you got to understand that that is all subjective. When you're interviewing, the interviewers have a list of things that they're looking for, which you can prove objectively that they need those skills because they are things that need to be done. But the interview is always subjective, even when you try very hard to make it not so. It really comes down to a person, a human being who's listening to you and making a judgment. And that's how important this is. And you don't get to pick, is that person an enlightened being? Is that another Jedi sitting across from you? You'll not find out. You will not know. So it is very interesting. And that's kind of actually helped me as an interviewer, when I think about, like, for example, I have a someone who's applied who doesn't have the skills, but she has a lot of like moxie, what I'd call it, like volunteer in cybersecurity, this and this and this. I'm going to offer her a job because she's trying. Because trying is not a trait you can actually teach someone very easily. Cybersecurity, you can teach them. So, objectively, I can like, well, I subjectively say, well, she doesn't have the skills, but kind of moving out and looking, this is someone who's trying very hard to make a career change, and I'm her chance to do that. So, I'm going to, if we just did it by the numbers, that raw, we do it for keyword searches, wouldn't work out that way. But if you step back and look at it and go, oh, yeah, this is a chance. This is a chance for someone, but it's all subjective. And I think that's unfortunate, but in some ways it's not. I don't know. But that really struck me about this question is that these things are subjective. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Go
I'll
ahead.
keep it quick. Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. When I was in an interview, they kept asking me questions in conjunction with a certain topic that they were trying to say. And they kept asking me the question, even though I was more mutual on some of it and subjective than others. So it was interesting because I resonate with what you're saying by, depending on the article, they will not always post everything too and just kind of take what suits whatever they're trying to push at that time.
Yep. Yep. And sometimes there's also cases where the person interviewing is not actually the hiring manager for the job. So they always don't know the job. So they're going to be asking the wrong questions and then say, well, they didn't know anything. Well, you didn't know anything either because it's not the job you do. So there's a lot of subjectivity, and considering how important it is to get jobs, I was like, that is an unfortunate side effect of being like a entirely subjective area. Okay, exercise 8. Given those prior exercises, answer the following questions in your journal. Do you feel that you base your decisions more on objective thinking or subjective thinking? And you can be both. And it's okay to say, sometimes I feel this way and sometimes I don't. If you do answer, I'm both, maybe try to, like, are there cases where you're more objective? Like, are you more objective at your work and not so much in your personal life and that sort of thing? Is there anything that you see there? When do you notice more subjective thinking at play? Are there cases where that cause you to go very like, well, this is my opinion, that sort of thing, versus a little bit more open. And when you do feel being objective is, when do you feel being objective is more useful than being subjective, and why? So go ahead and take 5 minutes to answer these questions. Okay. We're going to switch gears into looking at personal traits. So personal traits are just those little nuggets of personality that we're all composed of. We all have multiple traits, different. They come up different times. They may be different. I'm going to give you a list shortly to show what I mean. But traits that help you are good, and the value judgment about them comes from your worldview. In some cultures, looking directly in the eye, like most Americans do, is considered really insulting. We would call it very forward and direct, and those are good traits. When you start looking at, I think anyone who's been to Japan knows the difference between Japanese culture and American culture. The same personality trait can be viewed as good or bad. Yes. So, the value judgment comes from your worldview, but we want to look at traits that help you. If it helps you in what you want to do with your life, that you've kind of answered questions for so far, they're good. If they get in your way, they're bad. That's all it is. And understanding the consequences of your personal traits helps you decide if they need changing or not. And here's I want to kind of delve into my background with the Dark Jedi, where they say that negative traits help them. Now, if you've dealt with anyone who's coming in and being unpleasant in a group, if they're coming into a group that is kind of happy there, that they come in as a group, I don't know if you can call a trait that causes people to shut you off a good one. There some people, I think it's very interesting. It depends on what you're. Yeah, I know. That would be a long discussion, but you got to look at it. If it serves you, it's good. But I always kind of wondered, like, if it's serving you and what you're doing, then it's good. But if what you really need is that kind of interaction, and what you're doing causes that interaction to suffer, maybe it's not as good. But we're going to focus on just the things that help you with your own goals. Also, there's masks with fake traits. This is another thing that came from. So you can go in through life with fake traits. If you're if you're an introvert and you have to put on traits of being outgoing, that is a little bit of a mask, right? I'm not outgoing. As a matter of fact, I'm not really good at giving talks. I get very nervous before the talk, and that tends to work its way out as the talk goes on. But I fake it. And that's a good mask because it gets me, it's useful and it gets me going. Some people fake things that are, not as useful. And I think the thing is depends on if you want to, if are they useful, and do you want to risk being appear unauthentic. People are very observant, to a little more observant than I think a lot of people give them credit for unauthentic behavior. If you are habitually, like, kind of presenting a different view to one social group, and then you're presenting a different one to the other one, and those social groups talk, they're going to know. You're not going to find out about it. Coming from the State Department when I was in the Foreign Service, the promotions and everything in the Foreign Service are entirely based off of your corridor rep. And your corridor reputation is how people feel about you. I want to talk about subjective. That determines what countries you're sent to. That determines if you get promoted or not. It determines your life. So if you have some traits that seem fairly innocuous, and they rub people the wrong way, or if you're trying to do the masking and you're trying to present different things to different people and they talk, you're going to be labeled, not labeled, physically, or not labeled as inauthentic, and they're going to not want to talk to you, and you won't know about it until comes bid time, and you get sent to Afghanistan instead of London. Uh, so it's a really tricky thing. So with people, I think that people don't give others the credit for seeing through that sort of thing, and they just like, it didn't seem so right. And over time, people going, I think that person's lying. I don't think that they're as friendly as they don't, like their facial expression doesn't really match their statement. I don't think that they're being, when they say that they're wishing me goodwill, I don't get it. This kind of that weird, subjective, like, I don't think that was right. So You know, that's the masking, and it's kind of risky. It's kind of like lying. I think my coworker today said he's just too old to keep track of his lies, so he just like is himself. I was like, that's a good that's a good way to. He's too old for that kind of stuff. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's hard to control that. If you're someone who wears their heart on their sleeve, it's really bad. Like the same coworker, he has no internal firewall at all. And like I've seen him in meetings when someone says something stupid, he would just go right there in the meeting. I'm just like, whoa, dude, got to keep that pleasant look. Yeah, okay, but so some people are better at that emotional, thing, yeah, or not. So it's the masks and stuff. What masks I think are very risky. I personally think it's better to remain authentic and then just deal with the traits that are not, what aren't serving you as well. Yeah. All right, so exercise 9. Here's a couple of traits. They're like ambitious, works well alone, passive, cooperative. Real short list. Just jot these down and mark and label on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is I don't have this trait, and 5 is I have this trait often. Put the number next to them. If you feel like, oh, I have that trait sometimes, that's like a 3, you know? But 5 is often. Yeah, I am this often. I have this trait often. And ambitious is, 1 is I do not have this trait at all. Okay, this one combines two results from two of the exercises. Number 6 about what you would need to be for those goals, and the last exercise we took. Keeping in mind your list of statements in the previous number 9, think or write about the insights you have from those statements and address the following questions. What do I have in hand and what needs work? You have goals, what you need to be, and then you have a bunch of traits. Were any of those traits things that you needed to be for those goals? What was already known to you and what was a new insight? Are there any statements listed that you feel you are especially weak on? And are there any statements listed that would make use of strengths? Did you rate something that was high that would help you? Yeah. Did you rate something that was high, a 5 that you feel would aligns with your goal? That's a good one. That sort of thing. So take 5 minutes to this exercise. Yeah, that lifelong effort. This. Yep. All right, we're going to be doing a reviewing. So that is the foundations. I just wanted to stress that there's no perfect understanding of your own mind, just the ability to see what's going on and hold yourself accountable what's there. This quest for self-understanding will take you your whole life. I think that's come up multiple times during this. And this is an important part of living with intent. Living with intent is living mindfully. If you want to do things, you know exactly what you need to do. You're going to align yourself to do them. And this isn't really just about goal, the kind of like a self-help goal thing. Like I'm going to get rich or whatever. I'm going to get that car or something. But it's just being an authentic human being. You know, don't being someone who goes through life and isn't tripping themselves up. I think we all have met people like that, that you're like, oh gosh, they really want to do this and they really want to, do this, but they just keep doing this and it sabotages them. And, people are really bad at that. It's the brain thing. If you've got any doubts and stuff, mine is, due to my upbringing, my mother told me I was stupid. I'll be frank. She told me when I was in high school that I was of average, if not below average, intelligence. And even though, yeah, great, good parenting, yeah. But even so, I mean, even though at the time I knew she was wrong, because thank God I was like a teenager that actually had her, things together to understand her mother was wrong. That has followed me. I know that I get very anxious when people question my intelligence, and I have to like watch for that. Even though I know that they're wrong, and my life has proven that they are wrong, I have to still watch for it because there's that emotional thing in the back going, but mom said, so I'm like 50 years old. This happened when I was 17. So, I mean, this is a lifelong thing. We all carry these little scars and stuff, but understanding where that comes from and understanding like I am not stupid. That feeling that I get every once in a while is coming from back there, and I can dismiss it. So understanding what's going on in your head, I don't have to solve that. My mother is she won't admit that she said that in error, and she's 75. It's not worth bringing up the issue with her. I don't need an apology from her now. I have a good relationship with my mom, and we just let it go. But you have to just kind of mitigate these things, and that's what life is about. So once you understand how you work and where those urges are coming from and what's going to help you and how things you might need to change to align yourself with what you want to be, it becomes a little easier. But I think it's all about visibility and into the mind and how your mind works and getting past that. So that is the end of the presentation. I want to thank you very much for all being here. But I want to thank you guys for going a little bit long with me. Many thanks to the people who put this big event on, this one force. And I will try to get to the videos of everything that happened while I was working this week. But thank you very much. Thank you for being here, and I will see you again at another time.